Welcome back, brothers and sisters. Braden, Tim, Second Legacy. You are amazing, and oh, do we have a show for you today. So far, guys, we haven't dove into the real big, crazy election results and polling and all this stuff, mostly because a lot of people really touch on it, but we can't resist. We have to do it because something is happening and you need to know all about it. We're about to walk you through the ultra-leftist TYT, the Young Turks, the reactions to Kamala Harris, in their own words, disaster and losing. This is going to be an interesting one because everything that we're about to show you, it could go well if everything continues. But of course, guys, it can only continue if you make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on, spreading freedom to and fro with delicious humor and sarcasm. Tim, is your sarcasm and humor ready for this one? Because we're going to need it because we're going into the Young Turks.
Do we? I think Jink has been, he's been red pilled.
Yeah. There's a little bit of red pill and there's a little bit of wellness check because this guy is losing his marbles on this.
Yeah.
Okay,
he's been ripping people online. And
absolutely.
It's not the Republicans.
But anyway. No, it's not the Republicans. And some backstory here, if you guys are not familiar, the two people that we're about to show you are from a network called the Young Turks. Okay, the Young Turks is like far left progressive. These guys are like Bernie Sanders level progressive. That should give you an idea on the spectrum of politics where these guys are. They're all for Harris. They're what?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, these guys historically are like off the left side of the scale.
I mean, like so far, like you need binoculars to see them if you're standing in the middle.
You couldn't come up with a far left loony policy that they wouldn't embrace.
That's very true. However, and this is an interesting one, they don't like something that they're seeing around the appointed princess, Kamala Harris. And me and Tim are going to have some fun with this one because, like, when you have Harris, you have polling, and you have the Young Turks, it's going to be a great time when me and Tim are around. All right, so with that, Dr. Slides, could you play cut one for us?
High, 48-48. But if you go back to September, Harris had a wider lead according to the same polls. So in September, ABC showed that Harris was up 6 points. CBS showed that Harris was up 4 points, and NBC showed that Harris was up 5 points. So clearly she has lost some ground here, Cenk.
So when she was up 5 to 6 points, I said, finally, if the election were held today, she would win. But I said, well, there's a long way to go, right? Because remember, being tied in the national poll means if you're a Democrat, you're definitely going to lose. Joe Biden won by 4.5 points on election day in 2020 and barely won the Electoral College by 43,000 votes. So you've got to have at least a 4.5 to 5 point lead in order to win. So if she's tied, that means she's now disastrously behind. So the swing states matter the most. There you can just win by 1 vote and you're fine, right? But at the national level, since you stack up so many votes in New York and California, you've got to win by 4 or 5 points. So this is really bad news. Unfortunately, just like we told you, I mean, when I wrote you a tweet on October 5th, we told you on the show before any of these polls had come out. We said, watch out, she's doing the wrong things. She's going to lose her lead. And now, unfortunately, the chickens have come home to roost.
Wow, I'm telling you, dude.
There's a lot in there, a whole lot.
And let's also take a look at the polling from Trump's first presidential run till present, right? So historically speaking, they tend to oversample Democrats in these polls. For whatever reason, I don't know why. And so there's that hole. That's why they always predict the Democrats are going to win, and then half the time they don't, because they oversample the Democrats. But also there's the Trump effect, right? And this has been going on since the early days and I think the Trump effect gets more pronounced as time goes on because the media continuously demonizes Trump. He's a racist. He's a misogynist. He's a blah, 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 whatever ist they can come up with. They slap that on him. And that tells voters when they get that random phone call from somebody they've never met before in their lives saying, hey, who you voting for? They're going to say, I'm going to vote independent, or maybe Harris, or maybe I'm not voting at all. But they're not going to say Trump because they don't want that stigma blowing back on them. And so they're screwing themselves in their own polling by their constant propaganda against the candidate.
Exactly correct. And you know the other thing that I love? First of all, I love that he said we're in disaster zone. I love that. They absolutely are. But I want to reiterate that for a second. 2 things here. I'm just going to say them out loud so I can try to remember both of them. The first one, he hit on the Electoral College and the vote shares from New York, California. We're going to hit on that in a second because they've said a lot of things on that one specifically. And then the other piece here of if it's tied, then they're losing. Now, I want to really make this crystal clear. guys, because the outsized shares that come from New York, come from California, come from Illinois, when they're looking at national polling, if they show that it's tied, they are losing. And they're not only losing, they're losing badly, because a Democrat presidential candidate in the general electorate from a national level, they have to be up by a minimum of 4 points historically to squeak by. That's what he's talking about with Biden when he squeaked by, because he was up 4 points. If they're not up 4 points, they're in trouble. Hillary Clinton was up 5 points and she lost. Biden was up 9 points going into the election and he barely squeaked by. So the number is somewhere between +5 to +9 because of the outside shares of the votes from big blue cities, which brings up another interesting point. Tim, you've hit on it a few times, the Electoral College. And who wants to get rid of that?
The left. See,
that's weird.
The left wants to get rid of anything that challenges their authority. So what they're striving for on the left is a one-party state. This is typical of most Marxists globally. They eliminate the competition, and then they're the only party representing the state. So you generally have one person or one party to vote for. And that's what they're moving towards. This is why they want to make a state out of D.C. This is why, because it adds liberal...
and Puerto Rico, too.
Yeah, and Puerto Rico, because it adds liberal representatives to the Senate, because every new state gets 2 senators. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to stack the Senate. That's why they want to undo the Electoral College, because the Electoral College, they'll say, well, it's racist. It dates back to the slave. No. It doesn't date back to modern communications, or, it has nothing to do with slavery. It has everything to do with giving a voice to the rural areas of America.
Correct.
Right? If we did not have the Electoral College, you look at those little tiny blue dots all over a big red map, and that's the only places candidates would go to seek your vote. All the other areas, they would just ignore. They're irrelevant because the Electoral College gives us in rural communities a voice. And that's what they want to get rid of. This is why they want to stack the Supreme Court. They don't like that the Supreme Court is minding the Constitution. That goes against the grain. They need Marxism, so they need to stack the court. They always want to rig the game. That's what they're trying to do here.
That's exactly right. And the irony that he's even saying and explaining to his audience, because remember, a lot of the stuff that we cover for you guys, we have to show you what the left is saying to their own audiences. Right, that's the big disconnect that a lot of people don't truly understand when we're going through these things. You have to understand not only who's saying it, but who they're speaking to, the determined audience. He's speaking to a far left progressive base. He's having to explain why a 50-50 split or a 48-48 in the polling, which she just referenced, is a horrible thing for Kamala Harris and it's a disaster. He actually has to educate his audience about how bad that is. Yeah. You have to understand this is really not good if you are on the left side. Now, you've got to vote. We're by no means saying it's in the bag. You got to vote, run up the score if you want to, or squeak by if you want to. But you got to vote.
That's the danger of these conversations, Brady.
100%.
If we go out there and say, yeah, it looks like Trump is actually in the lead, then that makes people go, I don't need to vote. He's got this in the bag. And that's also why they do misinformation campaigns, where the opponents may come out and say, oh, yeah, Trump's way ahead and we got to do something. That motivates their base and demotivates Trump's base. So there's a lot of games being played when they say, oh, so-and-so's in the lead. Take it, digest it, but vote and carry on as if you don't have any polling data at all.
Exactly.
Because it can be used to keep you from the polls. Anyway.
And that is how you end up with with cities that are in states that are swing states. That's how you end up with blue municipalities, how you end up with blue state legislatures, because you get this complacency built in, which is unacceptable. You cannot be complacent. The information that we give you, think of it as musings to really chew on and to digest while you're standing in line to vote. That's the way you should look at these things.
I mean, like California, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't know how many times I've had conversations with conservatives living in California who literally said to me, you know what, man, I don't get excited about voting. I don't even vote a lot of the times because my vote just simply doesn't count in California. Yes, it does.
It totally counts.
It will never count if you, abstain from taking part in the election process. I mean,
very true.
You're making it happen. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You have to vote, even if you think you live in a deep blue. Why do you think Trump's out in California right now? Probably because he has pretty much the swing states in the bag.
He wants that popular vote.
He wants the popular vote. He is trying, because this is something the left constantly harps on, right? Well,
Yep.
the Republicans haven't won an election by popular vote in a million years. And Trump already has the swing states in the bag, I think, that they're banking on. And so now he's going to go spend some of that time in California and in New York trying to bring out that popular vote.
He's just trying to get the popular vote just to stick his finger in the eye of all the lefties.
Right.
That's what he's doing.
He's doing campaign events every single day. He's going now to blue states, which normally, if he wasn't sure he had a comfortable lead elsewhere in the country, he would not be wasting his time out there. That's the messaging we're getting from him through the grapevine without him actually saying it. On the other hand, you have Kamala Harris, who is being forced into the spotlight because she tried to hide the entire election cycle. She thought she could just coast to the finish line. But the media, even the left media, like the Young Turks, were calling her out and saying, you got to get out there and let people know who you are. They don't know who you are because the average voter in America is dumb. They couldn't tell you who the vice president is.
And she did a great job with that one. What would you do differently from Biden? Nothing. Damn it.
Everything. My policies. I had nothing to do with this administration. I thought the borders
You
are.
know. Bro, you know that some aides, all the campaign people, she's like, I wouldn't do anything. Every one of them were like,
oh, I know. It was like the Leslie Nielsen. Like he just goes down like everybody's face palming.
Yep. Well,
and then Clinton comes out. Did you hear Bill Clinton?
Oh yeah. Where he's like, we would have vetted more people, and they wouldn't have killed those people if we vetted them.
And that poor girl wouldn't have been killed if we would have secured the border. Oops.
Oops the doodles. Who are you campaigning for there, Slick Willie? All right.
It's like the closer they get to the finish line, the more screw-ups
the more they trip over themselves. All right, well, now let's go to cut 2 because we got 3 cuts. These are all so good, guys.
And then there's the weight of the fact she's the VP in an unpopular administration. We asked about President Biden's policies. Are they helping or hurting your family? Just a quarter of voters said they're helping. Nearly half said they're hurting. And then here's the interesting twist. We also asked folks, think back to when Donald Trump was president. Did his policies help or hurt your family? And look at the difference. 44% helping, 31 hurting. Trump's, the retrospective, you would say, opinion of Trump's presidency among voters, arguably higher now than when he was president.
Consider how disastrous it was when Kamala Harris was being interviewed by the ladies over at The View, and she was asked, what would you do differently from Joe Biden? And she basically said nothing. She had no way of differentiating herself from the Biden administration, which of course is unpopular. And according to what NBC News found, voters feel that these policies implemented by Biden have made their lives worse. So she shouldn't have given the answer that she did during The View.
Yeah, that lady is under fire right now from the left too. I forget her name, but
Anna Kasparian.
Yeah, she's really catching flack right now. Jink was out like defending her on Twitter because she is like under heavy fire for not towing the party line 100%. If you keep in mind, if you're a leftist and you deviate even 1% off course, you're canceled. They will go after you and try to get you to lose your job. They will try to get you fired from your little podcast here. They'll contact your sponsors. They'll do all that. And that's happening her. But going back to those numbers, it's amazing because the left has been, I see this on social media all the time. You were miserable under Trump, folks. It was horrible. He was a horrible president. We were miserable. No, inflation was like 1.4% at its lowest. It stayed under 2%. Eggs weren't $4 a dozen. Gasoline was $1.89 a gallon. I mean, no, we weren't. We were doing great. And they go, well, he fumbled the COVID response. Well, he wasn't the president through the COVID response for very long, but he was there long enough to give you the vaccine that you love so much. You hated when he made it, JoJo. You hated. You would rather drink bleach than take the Trump vaccine. And then 2 weeks later, you post, "I'm getting after." Of course, this is after Joe Biden becomes president. I'm getting the vaccine. Who's with me? I mean, this is how dumb they are. I mean, Trump. He shut down the border the minute they found out that virus coming out of China. He shut it down. And what did the left call him? A xenophobe.
Or a racist. It was one of those.
Or a racist and a xenophobe.
Yeah. He shuts down the border and they're like, oh, you're a meanie pants. And then later on, there's a pandemic. Like, how can you not do anything?
Yeah, your response sucked.
You're a monster.
He literally gave him the vaccine that they want to force upon you. And he literally shut down the border that nobody else in the world had done to that point. He shut China out. And yet they still say, oh, he fumbled the COVID response. But we'll take that vaccine and all the boosters. I mean, they're such idiots.
That's very true. In fact, I think Kamala Harris was actually also on camera, correct me if I'm wrong, where she was saying that I would not take a vaccine if Donald Trump was the president. Yeah. I think she was actually on camera saying that. Dude, it's a comedy of errors. But look at that actual chyron right there. Like, I'm not sure if you can see that, but it literally says, this is on the Young Turks, Kamala Harris blows 5-point advantage over Trump. Guys, they're not holding anything back now. We're getting into the zone where they're going to have to start covering their own butts, because when this eventuality happens, they can't be like, well, we were lying to you for the whole time.
Yeah, because they already got caught in that trap with Biden.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, Biden, he's the sharpest I've ever seen. The man is a genius.
It's the best Biden ever.
Yeah, this is the best version of Biden ever. He's just on top of his game. He can play Connect 4, chess, and checkers at the same time. The man is a walking IBM supercomputer. And
That's
then,
true.
Yeah, he's incompetent, and he needs to go.
Did you see?
But we're going to put him on Mount Rushmore. What's that?
Yeah, right. Did you see Mika Brzezinski crying because the polling and everything's turning against Democrats? Did you see her crying on Morning Joe yesterday? It's a treat. I'll send you the clip. It was fantastic.
That is the worst of the worst when it comes to
the worst
talking shows. It's just, oh my goodness.
It is the worst. But watching her almost cry and fight back tears in a monologue is kind of worth it. I mean, like, while you're having your coffee, it is a way to start a day. But anyway, let me show you this last cut here.
So you didn't prepare for the answer of how are you different than Biden when Biden's popularity is in the toilet, when only 25% of the country thinks we're going in the right direction, and you didn't think that through, and you just said, oh, we're the same. Oh my God, what is wrong with this campaign? So, and guys, especially in light of the fact that they started so strong and they started so well, and we told you then too. We said, oh my God, picking Tim Walsh is gonna go up. Oh, the economic populist plans that she put out, she's going to go up. And she did go up. We were right about that. All they had to do was hold steady. Instead, she went into a room with a bunch of donors and a bunch of morons from Washington. And they're all like, oh, my God, you got to tell everybody how much you love corporations and Dick Cheney. And now we're screwed.
I think she got...
And Dick Cheney. That is so true. Like, I've been tweeting about that. Like, Dick Cheney with that evil face of his. Like, yeah, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. You know, and they're like, oh, Dick Cheney. They called this man the devil. They hated him during the Bush years. And then he goes, well, I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris. Oh, he's wonderful. We have Dick Cheney. It's like...
Yeah. And then this guy is, okay, again, he's so far left. But sometimes he's over the target. I don't agree with his destination, but sometimes he does have the ability to be over the target and really drop some truth bombs on the left, not the right. The right, he is rabid anti-right. But for him to just throw his hands up and goes, no wonder we're freaking screwed. Oh my God, it's so good.
I know. And you know, he like you said, he's over the target, but he still doesn't quite understand. So he's talking about Harris. She started so strong and she just started losing it. Well, why did she start strong? Because the left, despite the fact that the media and the entire Biden administration was covering up the fact that Biden was a vegetable, when they finally got rid of him and pushed him aside and foisted her into the position without a single vote, well, people were giddy. It's like, we got rid of the dead weight. The body's at the morgue now. We got joy. And then she started to talk. They tried to hide her in the base. They knew if they put her in front of a camera, she would turn off the American voter. Keep in mind, the average American voter is dumb as a bag of rocks. They don't even know who the vice president is. So she literally has to go out there and tell people who she is because they don't know anything about her, because they don't care about politics until election cycle comes up and everybody's got an opinion.
Right. Everyone's an expert all of a sudden.
Right. And so she gets out there and she starts running her mouth. She goes off script. And she even goes into interviews with 60 Minutes where they have to edit her responses because they're so idiotic. Mm-hmm. And he's wondering why she's failing. It has nothing to do with big money donors, Jake. It has everything to do with her being an idiot. If she goes off the teleprompter, she can't hold a conversation. She starts laughing uncontrollably. She has a nasally, annoying voice, and she doesn't talk about. She gets asked a question, and she goes off about, I was raised middle class, and I'm for the American voter. I have a Glock. But I asked you about the economy.
She's not relatable. She doesn't know how to communicate, and she doesn't have good policy positions that the people like. It really is that simple. Now, you just hit on something as we wrap this, which is incredibly important. Tim, you know what? You get a cookie for the day. The policy, the underlying policy, the anti-gun policy, the anti-freedom policy, the overbearing government response to everything policy, all the things that make the approval rating of this administration 28% and the direction of the country going 25% in the right direction. 75% say the wrong direction. That is not Joe Biden. That is not Kamala Harris. That is policies. That is literally, this feels like crap. Why does it feel like crap? Oh, it's their fault. They've been in power 12 out of the last 16 years. Dude, that's the point. And you've said it before. Yeah. It's about policy and the way people feel about their lives under that policy. It's not, oh my God, you like big business, or you went with Dick Cheney, or you didn't say the right thing to trick people. Nope. People feel like poop. They don't like feeling like poop. You're the poop.
Yep. It's true. And yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out, because the left has gotten the messaging wrong the entire time.
Oh yeah.
Every time she takes the microphone, she says something stupid that they have to run cover for, kind of like Biden. And you bring up a great point. They're running her on Joy, which is a joke, and then they tried to run her on change, and it's like, change from what? You are the Biden administration. You're, by your own words and by Biden's own words, the last person in the room, and been there for every single major policy decision. The same policies crippling Americans. And this is why nobody wants anything to do with you. And there's no putting lipstick on this pig. The more she talks, the worse the public views her. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
No, you're right. I think you put a fine point on it.
Yeah. All right. So, well, with all that being said, it's going to be fun to watch this, because it seems like the closer we get to the finish line here in Election Day, the crazier things are going to be. So I really look forward to the Fox interview tomorrow with Harris, and I'm sure there'll be some highlights there for us to talk about. So until then, thanks for watching Second Legacy. We'll talk to you guys soon.